Hello everyone. I have been observing here for a little more than a year. I am familiar with many of your stories and have been learning a great deal from you all. I have never posted because, until recently, I have considered myself reconciled. But recent events have me reconsidering everything. I have created a throwaway account to post due to potential identifiable details in my main account. Here is the abbreviated version of our story. Before I get to the recent stuff, D-Day was spring 2017. Wife and I were both early 30s at the time, together since undergraduate, one primary school age child. I have become suspicious that my wife was having an extramarital relationship but was dismissed when I expressed concerns. Eventually, I confirmed my fears and confronted her with evidence. She continued to try to deny, but eventually confessed, cried, and begged for forgiveness. My immediate reaction was to ask her to leave and initiate a divorce. I would describe the sequence of events that led to discovery of the affair. My wife's affair never got actual in person, but there were plans to. A few months before D-Day, I noticed my wife have been more protective of her phone, angling away from me when using it, putting it away when I walk into the room, taking it to the bathtub or shower with her. I thought it was strange, but not a huge deal. No real suspicions at that point. There was one incident that really raised my eyebrows though. We have always had free use of each other's phone. If one of us ever say, "Hey, let me see your phone," we handed it over, no questions. One day, I wanted to look up a new restaurant that I wanted us to try, and my phone was charging, so I asked to see it. She asked why, and I told her, so she looked up the menu and showed me, but she never handed me her phone, just looked at it with me while she was holding it. Combined with the other behaviors, I started to get suspicious. After sitting on my concerns for a few days, I brought it up and asked her if there was something going on with someone else. She told me, of course, there wasn't, but one of her friends was going through something very personal and sensitive, and that she was trying to protect her friend's privacy. She assured me that she loved me and would never do anything to jeopardize us or our family. It was understandably that she would want to be a good friend, so I dropped it. But that sinking feeling in my gut kept telling me that something wasn't right. The sketchy behavior stopped. Well, I thought it did, but evidently, I just made her aware enough to not be so obvious. There was another big incident that really convinced me that something was going on. I will try to be tasteful here, but I think the details are significant. My apologies if any of the details are upsetting, and feel free to skip to the next paragraph if you weren't interested in the specifics. One afternoon, we were being intimate, and she grabbed her phone and wanted to record. This was unusual, as she's really reserved and has always been slightly uncomfortable with cameras, even out of the bedroom. So this was weird, but I thought maybe she wanted to add some excitement. I asked her what the deal with the camera was. She kind of sheepishly answered that she wanted to watch herself. I was glad to see a more adventurous urge, so I went with it. She began to perform mouth and record herself with her selfie camera, and she's really into it. She normally only performs this act when I ask, but she volunteered this time and was very enthusiastic, staring into the camera and making sensual noises. When it was over, she made a big display for the camera to show that she had swallowed the result, which was something that she never did as well. I know, I'm sorry, but this video is pretty important to the fallout. So this whole thing, the camera, the enthusiasm, and other things, we are all out of character, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. It was obviously an enjoyable experience for me, and I didn't want to shame her or make her feel bad for being adventurous. So I just carried on like normal and kind of hoped that we might continue down that road together. But I have been with my wife since we were 20, and this is very out of character for her, and it just stoked that gut feeling I had that something was amiss. On one occasion, a few weeks after the video incident, I was about to get her phone and looked through her messages and camera roll, but I didn't see anything that shouldn't be there. Some time later, I remember that we both used the feature on our phones that automatically backs up camera pictures to Google Photos. She had a user profile on my laptop, so I logged in and used her saved credential to access her Google account. Nothing unusual on her email, but my heart dropped when I opened her photos. There were a lot, and I mean a lot of lewd photos and extra videos backed up there, going back for about 4 months. I had never seen any of them, so they weren't taken for or sent to me. She had deleted them from her phone, but not from her backup, I guess. I booted up the video camera on her phone and scrolled the screen over what I found, in case she somehow remembered and deleted it before I confront her about it. I sat on the info for a few days, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt and think of any reason that those would be there. This was before OnlyFans really took off, but I thought maybe she was posting exy stuff online somewhere. But this would have been wildly out of character for her. Like I said, she's always been very private and reserved. I honestly couldn't conceive of any situation other than being involved with someone else that would account for this. I again told her that something was off with her and that I suspected that she was involved with someone else. I didn't tell her what I found, as I really hoped that she would have some explanation that would clear things up and make me look silly. She got a little indignant, telling me that we have been through this already and that of course there wasn't anything going on. I asked her again if there were anything that she wanted to get off her chest, and she again said no. I had accessed her Google account again in anticipation of this conversation, so I showed her everything that I have found and told her that she needed to explain all the extra content in her Google account. She looked a little shocked, but composed herself quickly and said that I have ruined the exy anniversary gift that she was intending to give me. Since we both have to leave town from time to time, she wanted me to have some spicy content from when we were apart. I didn't buy it. I bluffed and told her that her Google account wasn't the only thing I had access to, and if she didn't tell me the truth immediately, I would leave. She broke down crying, saying that it wasn't what it looked like. She was sorry, and that she didn't do anything, but was just being stupid. I asked her who he was, and she said he was a colleague. They met at a regional function for work late in 2016, about 7 months before D-Day. He works in the same position as she does at a different branch of the same company. It was in another major city in our state, about 200 miles away. They initially corresponded via email about work-related stuff, then exchanged numbers. She swore that her intention was just to share professional advice and tips, since he had been in that position for several years, why she just got promoted to that position, and that initially that was the nature of their correspondence. The text slowly got more personal, with him eventually initiating flirting, which she reciprocated. He recommended that they move their conversation to an encrypted messaging app. My impression is that this slimeball made a habit of pursuing married women, so they did. She deleted these initial exchanges, which is why I never found it, but the remainder of their exchange was still in the messaging app they used. I told her that I wanted to see it. She fought and cried and tried to get me not to look at it, but I reminded her that I was prepared to pack a bag and leave if she wasn't full forthcoming. So she opened the app, handed it over, and curled up in a ball with her head between her knees. The thread was disgusting. Very, very graphic actual messages, pictures, and videos. They both expressed excitement for an upcoming work event in the summer that would require a 2-night hotel stay, with graphic messages about what they intended to do to each other. As I'm reading all this, my mind jumps to the video I described earlier. I asked her if she sent it to him. She just started crying harder, so I scrolled up the thread until I find the video. They sent several messages back and forth about it, including him telling her how much he enjoyed pleasuring himself to it, and how hot she thought that was, and so on. Man, that really hit me hard. I felt so unbelievably violated by her sharing this video. Not only did she share a very private, intimate video of me in a very vulnerable act. For context, I have never taken a pee pic, much less sent one. Sharing this with anybody would have been a very big deal for me, much less someone she was involved with. But they also made me an unwilling participant in their ex-war relationship. Maybe not really, but it certainly felt like it. Looking back, it also really hurt to think that I was just a proxy for her and affair partner in the video, and all the adventurousness that I was excited to see was for him, not for me. So I left and told her that I wanted to divorce. She moved out, but continued to express her desire to work things out. I met a few divorce attorneys, and the divorce settlement would likely result in a big financial lifestyle hit, plus split time with the kiddo. After a detailed review of my finance and many conversations with my parents, mentor, and friends, I decided that divorce was the best option. I could likely recover from the financial losses in plenty of time to retire on time, and my daughter would be better off with happy parents than married parents if she couldn't have both. When I met with my wife to let her know that I have made the decision to start the divorce, she offered a deal, agreed to a trial separation of both a year to cool off and meet with a marriage counselor. Then if I still wanted to proceed, she would agree to mediate divorce with equal custody and a more favorable asset split. I thought it over and agreed. I told her that I intended to treat our separation as if I was single. We have been together for so long, and I was quite inexperienced when we started dating, so I felt like I needed experience to make a good decision about our future. I told her I would not be comfortable with her doing the same, and if she thought this was unfair or she was not comfortable with this asymmetry, then we could proceed with divorce. She wasn't happy but understood and ultimately agreed. I started dating pretty quickly and have a few casual relationships with women I knew. I met a woman at the gym that I saw romantically for a few months. I think my wife thought I was bluffing about the dating arrangement though, as she didn't handle things well. At our first marriage counseling appointment, we were introducing ourselves and explaining the circumstance. Marriage counselor asked if I was actively dating, and I said yes. My wife said something to the effect of, "I don't see any point in us doing this if you are effing other women." After the session, I told her I agreed and that I thought marriage counseling was a bad idea. She apologized and backtracked, but I told her that we could revisit the idea somewhere down the road. In the following months, she sent me periodic texts, usually late at night, asking how I could do this to her and if I hadn't punished her enough yet. After about a year and a half, I started leaning towards getting back together. We had been working well together as co-parents and spending family time together with our daughter. Aside from that, dating is awful. Maybe it was too soon, but it was so frustrating. I was meeting women and going second and even third dates, but I just couldn't imagine anything more than a casual relationship with any of them. I decided to stop dating after about a year of separation, and this opened the door to spending more time with my wife. In early 2019, I invited her to move back in so that we could live together as a family again. My daughter was over the moon. The parenting became the basis for rebuilding our relationship. I trust my wife so many ways. She's a great mother. I trust her to make good and responsible decisions financially. I want her to make medical decisions in the event I am unable to do so. But the romantic love just never came back. I no longer feel blessed to have her in my life. Our relationship is inadequate, I guess. It doesn't detract from my happiness, but it doesn't really contribute much to it either. I have always hoped that it would come back eventually, but we have been back together for over 4 years now, and I think this is likely as good as it will get. But for now, I am a prudent partner, and I get to be a dad every day. So that's enough. At least it was. Recent events have destabilized the relationship and I am kind of spiraling. During the aftermath of the affair, I leaned really heavily on my best friend. We have been best friends since we were teens, and I've been there through all the major life events like graduations, weddings, birth of children, and etc. Despite both having full lives, we work out together several times a week, and he really put me on his back during those initial months of our separation, keep tabs on me daily, held me accountable to take care of myself, made sure I drank responsibly, pretty much make sure I didn't turn to a drunk slob until I got my legs under me again. Well, around Thanksgiving last year, he became very distant. He couldn't keep our gym appointments or hang out at all. But I didn't think it was that unusual with the holidays, family, and work. We all get busy that time of the year. I would text to check in, and he would respond with terse messages or a thumbs up reaction. No big deal. He needed space, and I just made sure to check in and let him know that I cared and was there for him. In January, my wife came home and asked me why I didn't tell her that my best friend and his wife were divorcing. I had no idea what she was talking about. She told me that his wife had called her asking for advice on how she was able to move beyond her affair and convince me to stick out the marriage. She gave her pretty standard advice: full disclosure, transparency, patience, respect, and etc., and recommended some readings. She was outraged on his behalf. I really had to bite my tongue since she didn't seem to see the irony. I was crushed for him. I knew as well as everyone what he was going through, and I wondered why he didn't lean on me. He was awesome to me after my wife's affair, and he would have to know that I wouldn't judge him. So I started reaching out to him, inviting him to the gym, to get drinks, to play disco golf, all this stuff we used to do. Finally, he agreed to drink. We met, and he wasn't glad to see me at all. Really short and unfriendly. We talk. He finally started to let the story out, and he told me that at one point his wife told him, "Jake got over it. Why can't you?" And that affairs are parts of lots of marriages. His wife was incredulous, and he would want a divorce. I could tell he blamed me, at least partially. It cut like a knife. The idea that I contributed even to the smallest way to this terrible fate of being visited upon by a friend hurt almost as badly as my wife's affair did. Did me staying with my wife make this more likely? Does forgiving infidelity make it more acceptable? Can I help my friend at all? I tried to explain why I stayed, and that our relationship was very utilitarian at this point, that our marriage wasn't like it was before. But he didn't care. He's entitled to his anger, so I understand. This whole episode has reopened deep wounds. My wife and I haven't been intimating in 2 months. I can barely look in her eyes and recoil from the physical touch. I am seriously considering divorce again. My daughter is older now and is better equipped to handle a potential divorce. At this point, my daughter is old enough to express her wishes, and I know I can trust my wife to be a great co-parent, regardless of our relationship status. I really feel like we have been set back years at this point. I feel so guilty, and frankly, a little disgusted with myself. Has anyone else experienced this overwhelming guilt, especially this far along? How do you deal with it? I know intellectually that I am not responsible, but his judgment is weighing really heavily on me, as is the fact that I can't help him the way he helped me. I really just don't know what to do. Advice or encouragement is much appreciated. Update. Some of you asked me about the lack of connection that I feel with my wife, even after being back together for several years. And I wonder if maybe that part of me that felt connection and intimacy was just broken by the affair. During our conversation, access just felt empty. I remember laying there in bed after one weekend, thinking that I should be feeling something. I was with a beautiful woman, sharing a vulnerable and beautiful moment, but I just didn't feel anything. The whole time, I just wanted the connection and intimacy that access used to provide for my wife and I, but I just never did, which made me feel guilty and pretty bad about myself. I hoped that when my wife and I got back together, that I would finally feel the sense of satisfaction and connection again. But I wasn't with her either. All the physical stuff is good. Excess is pleasurable, but not satisfying. It feels like I am sleeping around with my wife, if it makes any sense. Things have gotten a little better with my wife since I posted. We have talked a little bit. She's perceptive and smart, so she knew what was bothering me. I asked her in particular why she felt like she could judge my friend's wife for doing the same thing that she did. She said that she didn't do the same thing. Mike's wife slept with someone else multiple times, and she never did. She evidently convinced herself that she never had any intention of having excess with a fair partner. I reminded her about the exchanges, and she said something like, I effed up and got carried away, but I wasn't really going to do anything. She doesn't get it. Or maybe I don't. I don't know. On the one hand, I know our story could be much worse. On the other hand, I feel really bad, even now, but at least we're talking. Some ask about therapy as well. We never resumed marriage counseling after the first meeting, though my wife continued individual counseling throughout our separation. There is considerably baggage in my family regarding mental health treatment. My grandmother was treated very badly by mental health professionals in a much less compassionate time, so that had made a big obstacle for me in seeing anybody for myself. Not really sure how to get past that. As for Mike, I'm giving him space, like you all suggested. I texted him that I love him, that I am sorry for what was happening to him, and that I will be there if he needed me. He responded with a thumbs up. Poor guy, I wish I could help him. Thanks again for you all for being a sounding board. I can't tell stuff like this to anyone in my life. Either they judge me or they judge my wife, and that doesn't help anybody. Advice and encouragement are appreciated again. Update. We had excess tonight for the first time since just after New Year and the incident with Mike and his wife. She had a few glasses of wine after work and initiated rather aggressively. She is and always has been a very beautiful woman, and my urge for physical release has been building significantly in recent weeks. There is also an added pressure as her affair proved that I am not a required component of her ex-life. Maybe preferred, but not necessary. So if I don't perform, someone else will. There was nothing loving or intimate about it. It was frantic, searching, maybe even primal. After it was over, I felt the immediate need to shower, which I did. Her feelings were hurt. They would have been hurt had I rejected her too. Not sure if that was a win on the board for me. Sorry to be a bummer, but I'm feeling pretty down on myself and us. Posting here helps. Thanks everyone. Update. So after my last post, after breaking the dry spell, and really any time I have posted, so many of you encouraged me to talk to my wayward wife. I know that you are all right about that, but talking about my emotions and needs, or really anything heavy, has always been incredibly difficult for me. My father always taught me that a man just needs to quietly deal with all the things that bother him and take care of his responsibilities because no one cares for how we feel. They only care about how useful you are to them. It's no wonder he died in his 50s. Things have been icy and awkward around the house since the last incident I posted about. I have been making myself pretty scarce to avoid the awkwardness, which is pretty easy since I work and go to the gym every day. And my daughter and I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu together. We both love it. And there is something going on the Jiu-Jitsu gym every night during the week and on Sunday afternoons. So she and I have been spending a lot of time together doing that, which has been awesome. Anyway, in early February, my mother's sister passed away. She lived in a neighboring state and had some family photos and heirlooms and personal effects that are important to my mother. And I volunteered to make the drive to pick those things. We had made the plans about 3 weeks ago. Wayward wife and I planned on making the trip together this past weekend. As we were getting ready to leave for work Friday, I reminded her about the Sunday trip plans and offered to make the drive alone. It's about 4.5 hours each way, so not great, but I have made the drive there back in the days before I told her that I would handle it. She said that she wanted to go, and I told her it really was okay, that I am sure that she had more productive way to spend her Sunday. And she said that she didn't mind keeping me company, but if I didn't want her to go, she would stay home. I told her, of course, I wanted her to go, and it's not that I didn't want her to go. I just knew that it was going to be uncomfortable. I got up early Sunday morning, got our daughter settled with my mother for the day. I returned home to pick up my wife and hit the road. The first hour of the drive was pretty quiet. She had just woken up and isn't really a morning person. We stopped for breakfast, and after we ate and had caffeine, we chatted a bit, mostly about our daughter and work. Then things started to go sideways. We were just talking, nothing super serious, small talk type stuff. Then she asked me how Mike was doing. I told her I didn't know. She was confused because she knows how close we have always been. And I told her that I haven't spoken to him since we met for drinks a few months ago. She asked if something happened that caused us to fall out. And I said no, we have just both been busy and haven't been able to connect. I tried to change the subject, but she wouldn't let it go. She started to give me a hard time, telling me that he's going through something incredibly difficult with his wife's affair and the divorce, and suggesting that I was being a bad friend and that she was disappointed that I hadn't been there for him. I almost lost my temper, but I didn't. I just told her that I didn't want to talk anymore and turned up my podcast. But I knew this conversation had to happen eventually. I had always been better at formulating my thoughts in writing rather than extemporaneously, so I have been preparing for this conversation by posting here, which had been helpful, but also keeping a journal where I would write questions that I needed answers and write out things that I wanted to communicate. I know I can be stubborn, but everyone's advice here really had made a difference. So I just took a few minutes to collect myself. Then I turned down the stereo and told her about what happened when Mike and I met, that his wife told him that he needed to get over it, like I did, and how cheating is a normal part of marriage now, and that he was overreacting. I told her how he told me that he thought she was right, at least in part, and people staying with cheaters make cheating more acceptable. And if his wife had seen my wife face the consequences of losing her marriage, that maybe she wouldn't have done what she did. I also told her how Mike's divorce and that conversation with him had opened my old wounds and had me thinking a lot about her affair and our marriage. She got somewhat indignant and defensive, like she always does, talking trash about Mike's, and once again objected to me using the word affair to describe her relationship with her coworker. This is sort of her playbook to avoid difficult conversations. So I told her to forget it, that I made a mistake to say anything, and that we should enjoy the tree and sunflowers. So I turned the radio back on, and we suffered through a really awkward half an hour or so of silence. I guess she cooled off because she apologized and said that she wanted to talk. I told her fine, go ahead. She asked me if I still loved her. I answered honestly and told her that I wasn't sure. She told me that she knew that I did. I asked her how she could possibly know that, since I couldn't even answer. And she told me, love is a verb. It's corny, I know, but we are both huge John Mayer fans. And she said that she felt loved. She told me that doing what it took to keep our family intact, being a great dad, taking care of my responsibilities every day, opening our home to her even during our separation. She told me that even when things were at their worst with us, she knew that she could depend on me without questions if ever she needed me, and she always felt like she and our daughter were safest when they were with me. She said all those things were acts of love, and as long as she felt loved by me, then I was loving her. Then she asked me if I thought she loved me. I told her that I knew she did, that her life would likely be easier if she decided to leave, and that love would be the reason why she had continued on with me. But I seriously questioned how she could love me when she jeopardized our family during her affair. I told her that there must be some insufficiency with me that caused her to become involved with someone else. and I couldn't understand why she never addressed things with me. And I told her that she should have left rather than cheated. She got pretty upset at this and told me that she never considered leaving. It wasn't even on the table because she loved me so much. I explained that I had really difficult time seeing any congruity or logic to what she was saying, and I asked her why she would develop a relationship with another man if she wasn't unhappy. I asked her if I didn't give her enough attention to make her feel beautiful and loved. She said that I didn't do anything wrong, but that she just started to take those things for granted from me. We have been together so long that as part of the status quo, that maybe I did all those things for her out of some sense of duty or obligation. She also said that she always been a bit insecure in our relationship, that she always noticed the attention I got from women, and that it made her feel a little bad about herself, like she wasn't anything special to me. If she wasn't there, I would have had a lot of options. That was one of the things that drew her to her affair partner. He was a good deal older than us, short, balding, pudgy, pretty much the physical opposite of me in a lot of ways. She said she saw pictures of his wife. She was rather average looking, middle aged woman. Nothing wrong with her at all. But my wife was younger and more attractive, and she felt like something special to him. So his attention made her feel really good about herself, that she really enjoyed the lustful, almost obsessive attention that he gave her. She knew that she was the only thing like that in his life, and it felt almost like a drug. I asked her if she ever suspected or worried about me cheating on her, and she said no. She knew that I wouldn't cheat on her, that even if I wanted to, my sense of loyalty and commitment wouldn't allow me to. She still thought I was bluffing about dating others during our separation until I actually started doing it, which was why she got so upset and really couldn't believe I actually did it. I asked her why I didn't deserve equal measure of loyalty and commitment, and she insisted that she had been loyal and committed and that she would never sleep with anyone else. I reminded her that the messages that I saw in their chat thread about their plans to meet and sleep together at their company regional event, and she said that she was just gassing him up and that her company wasn't even going to send her to the meeting that year. I guess it was a rotating thing who would go from year to year. She just had to keep him believing to keep the supply of attention coming. I asked her if she was attracted to the AP, and she laughed and said no. I told her that what she was saying didn't make sense to me, that it seemed to me that all of these things she was saying could not be true at the same time. She compared her texting relationship with P graphic use, that a man might watch PRN to build his extra energy and excitement in anticipation for excess with his partner, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love his partner or would rather be with someone else. She said that was basically what she got out of her affair partner. She felt exy and got excited by all the attention that she got from him. And then she enjoyed XX with me that much more because of it. She asked me to think back to before D-Day and how intense XY relationship was then and how much assertive and enthusiastic she was. She said that the affair just helped her feel so good about herself that she couldn't get enough of me. She said none of that had anything to do with him. These are evidently all the issues that she's been working on in therapy. I have never done therapy. Therapy things have been a big struggle. There's a pretty serious history of mental illness in my father's side of the family. My dad suffered pretty significant mental illness, but he functioned okay most of the time, with only periodic outbreak of delusion. His mother, however, was much worse and had to be institutionalized several times since she was a legitimate threat to family and herself. She was going through the system in the 60s and 70s, and the profession's understanding of mental illness and people afflicted was not what it is today. So my dad grew up seeing his mother treated very, very badly by doctors and hospitals, and that passed on through me. He was always afraid. He never wanted to see a doctor. I was always afraid that my dad was going to be taken away from us when he had a flare up. And so I guess I just always view mental health professionals with distrust. Fortunately, I don't suffer the same issue my dad and grandma did, and I am past the age where I would expect to see symptoms appear. I think that's why I was so quick to bail out on marriage counseling after just one meeting. I was looking for a reason. I had two initial meetings with therapists for myself, and I was just so ill at ease that I didn't go back. I am not sure how to get over all this baggage. Therapy would probably help, so she just could be telling me what she thinks makes her look better. I don't know. At about that point in the conversation, we arrived at our destination. We gathered my aunt's things and hung out with my uncle for a couple of hours. It always feels strange going through someone's possessions after they pass away. I noticed it first when my father passed away. All their things are with you, but they aren't, and their whole lived life is just boiled down to their stuff. And so many things that seemed like there would be no reason to keep, but that they had reasons enough for, but we would never know what it was. Things were somber on the way home. Going through my aunt's stuff was difficult, and we were both digesting a lot of what we talked about. Plus, it was a very long day, and we were both very tired by that point. We talked a little more about our relationship and the possibility of going to marriage counseling. I am still reluctant, but told her I would give it some serious consideration. I really don't know what to make of this stuff about her affair and affair partner. Do I believe it? If so, does it make me feel better or worse? I don't know yet, but at least we talk more substantively than we have in a long time. I think driving helped, since we didn't have to look directly at each other, kind of like a confession booth. It feels much better having some of the cards on the table. Maybe we can start moving forward together now. Whether it meant a better marriage or a divorce, at least it's progress. I am encouraged though, because we both pushed through the discomfort to have the conversation. I didn't shut down, and she got over her defensiveness. And both of those things have always prevented conversations before. Maybe I'm part of the problem with her minimizing things. I am not saying that what she did wasn't that bad. It absolutely was, and it continues to endanger relationships. But Mike's wife affair was significantly worse, in my view. She slept with a mutual friend of her and her husband. They would all hang out together, and her husband would interact with him as a friend during the affair. She also evidently has several actual encounters with her affair partner in their shared home and in their bed. I had no doubt that had my wife had done anything approaching that level of disrespect, I would have ended things without hesitation. I really think that if she had had a physical, in-person relationship with a fair partner, I would have ended things. Regarding other betrayed spouse, yes, that portion of the conversation did trouble me. But to my wife's credit, she did blow the whistle about the affair to HR. They had a policy against fraternization. And to his wife, I told her that if she didn't, that I was going to, and that she needed to do the right thing if I were to consider delaying divorce proceedings. So I am not sure how much credit she deserves. Wayward wife decided to leave the job anyway when things blew up. Otherwise, she would have likely been fired too. Maybe not, since he was senior to her and operated as a professional mentor. But it would have been trouble, so he was fired. And from what I gather, other betrayed spouse divorced him. Thanks for the comments, and I appreciate your advice and insight. And hopefully, this will foster more productive conversation in the future. I don't think I would have gotten past in my end without all the support and advice I've gotten here.